Welcome to Human Resources Virtual Exchange, HR Digitalization in the New Normal. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for a thought-provoking and practical session specially curated for busy HR professionals like yourself. We hope you will enjoy the upcoming few hours with us as we delve into an important topic, HR digitalization in light of COVID-19 and brave new world of 2020 and beyond. Today, we are pleased to welcome a fabulous lineup of speakers and panelists who I'll introduce very shortly. But first, I'd like to thank some of the organizations that made the virtual exchange possible. Our platinum sponsor, Mercer, our gold sponsor, Tricor, our silver sponsor, Adobe, and finally, our live video solution partner, Studio One. All right, let's get to business. I'd like to introduce you to our opening keynote speaker, Honest Wong, currently the Senior Manager of Regional Talent Acquisition and Employer Branding in Asia Pacific for BASF. Honest will talk about the digital transformation. It starts with you. Hi, Honest.
Okay, thanks, Wendy.
Thanks for joining me. Okay, are you ready? You're ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, great. All right, let's get this going. All right, thanks. Over to you, Honest.
Yeah, thank you very much as well. Okay, so let me move a little bit. I think I'm a little bit out of focus.
Sure. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. So, hello everyone. Welcome again. I'm the first one in the afternoon. Hope you enjoy your lunch. And then, yeah, it's not easy to be the first one. But anyway, I try to really share our journey talking about HR digital transformation at BASF. So it's more like a story. So I think it's good to get started today. Hopefully you can see my slide. Okay, so what we are talking about, right? So we heard a lot of discussion talking about digital transformation, etc. So one of the things that we look at is 3 stages, right? So the first thing is talking about automation. So to open that, we standardize the process and then we do automation. Some of those actually right now doing by robot, and then that's the things that how we really improve the operational efficiency. But the second thing is more close to today's topic. We are talking about digitalization. So actually it's more than talking about technology implementation. It's talking about how we really create a culture in terms of using technology, in terms of data that draw from the technology, gather from the what we call the technology tools, and then create certain kind of insight to our business. So that's the second part. Third part I highlight here is digital transformation. So you see it's very different. My focus is talking about people. So what exactly it means, because that's the outcome of the first 2 stages. And then that's talking about an agile organization. Because I also have certain kind of technology background, as you know that technology changes from every single day. So something you learned 3 years ago actually might not be relevant in the coming 3 years. So what happened is the fact that how we really catch up in terms of those. Is talking about we need to be agile, not only talking about our technology, we have to be updated. Also, we need to have an agile mindset. That means that we pick up the things very quickly. To a certain extent, it's really a nature. We take it out and then we really see how to adopt and then make use of it. So that's a question I have for you. You don't have to give me an answer. So there's a 1, 2, 3 stages, right? Or 3 stages, what we call. So where does your organization stand in terms of digital transformation journey? So that's one question. Of course, as HR, it's very good to align in terms of the organizational direction and then to understand where we are in terms of as a whole, as a company. And then the second thing is how about yourself, your individual? Where are you at? You can put at 1.5 in the middle or 2.5. That's absolutely okay. But where are you as an individual? And also you look at your team. So where they are in terms of digital journey. So I think there's a good question to start to have certain kind of awareness about where we are. And then hopefully my sharing can help you to think about where you want to go, and then also help you to move forward a little bit. So to start with, right, so I think organization is very important as HR where we are, right? So I share a little bit about our company, BASF, my company. As you may know that we are a chemical company. So we have a purpose that we create chemistry for a sustainable future. As a leading global company in chemical industry, our headquarters is in Germany. So one of the background is talking about why we do what we do. Is also talking about chemical industry. So a little bit background, as a chemical company, you may see that actually what we produce is in all industry. So I believe you have something on your, in use, and then actually have our product as well. One of the things I want to highlight is the fact that we have a lot of employees. You see the numbers, there's a global number. For Asia Pacific, we also have about 16,000 employees as well. So why we have that huge amount of employees? Because we do have production sites. So as you see that we have 6 with one site, what we call, actually it's a German, talking about fully integrated production sites. And we have 361 globally. So that means that we have a lot of sites. That means that we have a lot of blue-collar production workers as well. Of course, we have a very diverse workforce, apart from what we call HR, IT, supply chain management, sales, marketing. We also have what we call R&D as well. So they're scientists, they drive our innovation. So of course, as I mentioned, we also have huge amount of production workers that is really talk about local talent based on specific location. So you can see the diverse workforce. And then in terms of also background as well. So as I mentioned, that's talking about our chemical industry. So it's about a digital transformation. So when you also, if you're also in industrial manufacturing industry, you may heard about Industry 4.0. So there's a little bit like the topic talking about the digital transformation in the industry. So it's a little bit complicated, but as you know that as a manufacturing company, we're talking about end-to-end value chain, or what we call supply chain. So when we're talking about here, we produce product, right? So we have production sites, but first of all, we also have supplier to supply the raw materials to us. And then in the middle, actually, is our own operation. We call R&D. We have plants, manufacturing sites, and we also have supply chain logistic warehouse as well. But at the end of the day, we also have our customer. So that's very important in terms of our value chain. When we're talking about digitalization, I believe you heard that why the company do so. It's talking about the value creation to our customers. That means that at the end of the day, every company want to improve in terms of customer experience. And then why or how we can do that? Because internally, we really talking about using technology to improve our operational efficiency and also improve our transparency in terms of what kind of services. For example, we can provide the transparency to our customer where their goods are, and then they know when they can receive the product, for example. So that will be something that is really business focused. But on the other hand, as HR or internal, how we can be part of those and benefit from those. That's something that I will have a further sharing. So again, talk about 4.0, as you see, it's talk about our industry 4.0, as mentioned about effectiveness and efficiency. So that's always the topic the management say, when we talk about this topic, there's 2 keys that we want to drive. On the other hand, that is very important, as I mentioned, data to value, right? So we are not talking about investment in terms of sexy technology only, and then we talk about how we understand and leverage data we gather from the technology and tools, and so that we can really draw certain kind of insight and help us to make a better in terms of business decision. So that's at the end of the day, as I mentioned, is our customers, right? We want to add values for what we have been doing. We want to engage our customer in a better way. So that means what? Our company is ready, right, for digital transformation. But one of the things that I want to share with you that that's very key in terms of people. So we start with people, right? So of course, we need the technology, we need the things that enable us to do so. But the key drivers is talking about our people. Especially we're talking about that huge amount of employee we have, and also we are very diverse in terms of the background and also the skill set, of course, in terms of the mindset and mentality as well. So I really take the slide from our internal management consulting team because they're very good in terms of driving change within the organization. So here's a little bit of very easy to understand concept in terms of how we drive change management at BASF. So first of all, right, so when we're talking about change, you see the visual, you don't have to, it's not easy, it's not difficult to understand. Actually, we are talking about past and future, and then we are talking about significant change. Of course, behavior is very important because there will be certain kind of thing that to show what you believe. So that will be the thing that we look at, right? So although we are saying that we have new processes, but whether our people really believe in the process and why they really stick on the process. So that will be the one thing. But the second thing that is about the source, right? So change can be, in terms of source of change can be anywhere. So for us, it's talking about our industry, our customer, our competitor, and then down to our leaders, and then to our employee as well. So that will be possible, but also there will be bottom-up approach. That means that, as you know, that Gen Z, they're very innovative, and then when they join the company, they already have a lot of ideas talking about, okay, the external world actually is working on this. Why we cannot do that? So we also have certain kind of bottom-up that talking about how we enable our people and also the organization in this journey. So, but one of the things that change is difficult, right? So one of the things that you cannot ask someone or your colleague saying that, okay, you have to change tomorrow and then they will do that. It won't be happening to be open. So, but the good thing is change can be managed. And then if we manage proactively, and then we can get there. And then the most favorite part I like is about this. It's not draft by HR, it's from our management consulting team. They are saying that organizations don't change, but people do. So to rephrase a little bit, your team don't change to be open, but your people do. You know what I'm saying? So it's talking about the focus about your people, individual, and then we come together as a team, as an organization, and then how we might really work together to manage change. So interestingly, I want to really describe a little bit how we really support in terms of our transformation journey at BASF. So as I share a little bit, the topic is not NEO, there's a company and global topic, everyone is on board, right? So and then what kind of roles that IT play in terms of digital transformation? So I want to highlight that we don't have IT department, we have so-called GDS. That means the Global Digital Services. That's equivalent to the IT function. Of course, you see that they provide different kind of solution. We have supercomputer, by the way. He has a name, very interesting. We have analytic solution as well. To open their portfolio is just like that big. If you're interested, I can share with you. But one of the things that is interesting, I want to highlight to the HR people that we have here. We also have a team under IT, under GDS, called Workforce Enablement Team. So Workforce Enablement Team, what actually they do, they try to create exciting employee experience. That means that they try to enable every single employee that we have in terms of this digital journey. So first of all, they build up certain kind of digital skills. One of the things that, you will say, is it IT skill that between the IT people? It's not the concept. So we believe that everyone should have certain kind of digital skill to help to support the digital transformation. So it's not talking about I'm IT guy, so I need to do that. It's even I'm HR and I'm supply chain, I'm a sales guy. I also need to have certain kind of digital mindset. So they try to gather together the insight, right? So the digital talent pool, that means that for me, maybe I'm HR on my JD, actually it's not talking about IT programming, but I do have some programming skill. So I can put up my profile and then, there's certain kind of pool that we have a wheel in terms of resources we have. On the other hand, that we promote digital leadership. That's a lot of training and workshop talking about how we really lead as a leader to really get there in terms of digital transformation. So thirdly, as you see here, most important is the agile culture. So what they're talking about it, yes, they provide certain kind of tools, and then they will advise you that, okay, if you have certain kind of a virtual meeting, what kind of tools that are available for you, so that enable you to have a really nice customer engagement meeting virtually. So that's something is not very used to for our industry, because you may know that our sales guy really meet up with the customer and supplier in person. So to really talking about our product engagement application. So they are not very used to that, but the team really did a very great job. And then they try to be patient and introduce, okay, if you have this kind of setup, or if you have this kind of engagement, might be virtual format, or this kind of tool can help you. And then a lot of colleagues are very onto it, and then we start to really move into this direction. So it's a culture, and also talking about new way of working. So back to our HR, right? So HR, as the background I share about our company, this topic is not new for the organization. And then we also have very nice support from the IT, what we call GDS support. We also have team members to support us in terms of enable our workforce, right? So then one of the things, how about our HR people? So one of the things that I see in terms of HR, we have two groups. As I separate here, one is the leadership team, right? So we have the leadership team, and then we also have our frontline HR staff. That means that the working level. So depends on the topic, maybe they do talent acquisition, they do R&D, etc., etc. But they are the frontline. They are really the operational guy. So how I look into it is the fact that they also have different perspective of understanding on this topic. So for HR leadership team, of course, is very goal-oriented. There's the management expectation that, okay, we need to be effective, we need to be efficient. So that's why we use the technology, and then they have to know, they want to know what value we will create after, have certain kind of new tools, or introduce certain kind of new concept in the way that how we work together. So who will benefit from it, right? So the management say, oh, would that be to the customer as well? Would that be to employee only, or for talent acquisition? Would that be to the potential recruit, or only talk about internal operation, HR? Would that be also impact our finance accounting process, etc., etc.? That they understand the benefits, the scope, in terms of the impact. And then of course, we expect them to be a role model, right? So one of the things to be very open, first of all, what you try to do, you need their support. They need to understand all this. And then because the most difficult or tricky part is talking about they need to be the role model. Because I also experienced that our leaders, they tell you what they have to, what you have to do. Yeah, you have to be agile, you have to be this and that. But on the other hand, when you look at the way that how they lead, there's a little bit question, oh, okay, seems to be the way that we have been doing for 10 years. So how you really engage the team saying that, actually we are on this journey, and then we are learning, and then we try to change. But on the other hand, that you don't change, right? So I think being role model is really important because everyone looks at you and then to see, okay, what would be the situation look like if we change, and what would happen? So I think that will be very important. But then HR leadership side, I think you guys are very experienced to manage. But one of the things very interesting is about your working level, right? So you have to prepare your team for the change as well. What I'm saying is not only talking about, okay, decision has been made, and then right now this is the tool you can use, and then you use it. Is the fact that you have to let them understand how humans and also technology work together. For example, what actually is their role, and then what you have to do to really add value. So I think that will be something they always might be forgotten because of the daily work, and then they also forget how these kind of little things, if they really change, how this can impact in the whole picture, how they can support in terms of our digital transformation. So I think it's very important to understand the perspective and also to balance, right? But then easy said and done. So I want to share an interesting story that I have in this year talking about TA digitalization. So one of the things that we did, we worked with GD team, as I mentioned, the IT solution team that we have, and then they help us to develop a tool talking about HR analytics tool. This is why on machine learning technology, machine learning algorithm. So the key thing, the purpose is to do certain kind of CVP screening. So if you are in talent acquisition, sometimes you will also experience that you have one job and then you have 2,000 CV, right? So, and then you don't have time to screen 2,000 CV, and then to move on is very painful because the manager wants to be quick to hear from you, would there be any potential candidate? So that's the tool that can really based on the algorithm, and then they will identify the keywords on the CV and also on the JD. They have certain kind of logic to do the calculation, and then they will give the tool will give you certain kind of scoring based on the JD and CV matching. So again, it's not talking about, okay, there's the tool fully automated and then you don't have to really look into the details, but it's really talking about certain kind of basic pre-screening because this kind of tool is also debatable in terms of, because the candidate will say, okay, you use these kind of things to screen me, would that be really appropriate? Yeah. So what we do is really basic. We really are talking about, guys, recruiter, you still have to spend time in terms of looking into details. Yeah. So one of the things that, of course, the objective is very clear based on the three bubble I have. And then, of course, I highlight in terms of the perspective of the working team. So first of all, is talking about save my time, right? So I think that we want them to save time as well. Yeah, for sure. But the second thing that we want to achieve is the fact that we want to build the candidate pool, the talent pool for our manager, even they don't have a position yet. So because if you have already a lot of CV, you can do pre-screening in a very effective way. Of course, you can build up the pool and then you can really save it. And then once you have the opening, and then you can reach out to them. So that's the objective, the benefits to the manager and business. So the final thing is about the candidate, right? So we also want to create good candidate experience because if you screen a CV quickly, that means that you can also give response to the candidate, on a timely manner. So they don't have to wait for you, just like 2 weeks or even a month, right? So that's also benefit that to the candidate. So it's a really win-win situation, right? So what we present, but the working level that they really look at one aspect to save my time. So one of the interesting story that because we also have the experience sharing after we launch the tools to see whether we need to fine tune or whether the tool will be useful for our TAT members, right? And then one of the colleagues told me that actually the tool is not very good. It's not good enough. And then I asked her, why is that? Can you tell me more so that we can see whether we can improve? As you know, that technology is not perfect, right? So, and then she said, oh, because of that, because actually the candidate we select to hire, he was only on top 4 of the list. It's not on top 1. So I don't think the tool is accurate enough. So I'm not sure what your thought on that. And then I have certain kind of silence over the call. One of the things that I understand, they want to save their time. But on the other hand, that needs to be managed. The tool is not going to replace your job. So one of the things that your value is to really talking about the understanding of the business, understanding of the manager, and then you can also give the view in terms of, what kind of talent will be the best fit. So that's the intelligence or the value that you can add in terms of the process. So that's why I'm saying the tool is useful for only some basic screening. It's not trying to replace you, right? So I'm not sure what you think, but for me, it's interesting thought. I understand where you are from, but to be open, you also have to understand the balanced view. Because one of the things that technology cannot replace human totally, but can also can add value, but how? And then you have to really work together with them. That's one of the story. So to conclude, I don't have a lot to say, but that's the story that I want to share. But one of the things that, again, as HR or back to today's topic, right? So HR digitalization start with you, right? So start with HR. So I'm looking at this, and then I said that there's a couple of things talking about. First of all, we talk about change management. It's talking about our HR people. So first of all, digital leadership. So we need our leaders to be role model. And then one of the things that we talk about is upskill, right? So as leader, we are experienced in different HR topics, in terms of content, etc. But for digital leadership, to be open is new to everyone. So how we really equip that and then to really support the digital transformation for the organization and also within HR, I think that will be very important to look at how we upskill. On the other hand, that talking about develop, right? So we talk about, you can learn, right? So, but digital skills that I'm not talking about leadership as to drive change in terms of people, but talking about that, I also learned certain kind of basic, what we call technology, right? Because when you really deal with IT guy, you really have to understand certain kind of terminology they are talking about, so that you really translate your needs to them so that they also understand you. Sometimes it's not easy, but then for me, I think for HR, you don't have to really pick up the programming language, so to say, but you really have to understand how to apply the technology and then to deliver the results. For example, to deliver the insight you need to really optimize the process that you don't think is necessary to do it by your team, might be by technology, by robot, and then your team can work on something else. So that's talking about reskill, right? So it's to really let go something and then learn something. So the the third thing I want to say is about the agile culture. That's really challenging. I think everyone wants to get there, just like our organization. But one of the things is talking about mindset change. So agile is a mindset, right? So you're talking about our GDS, they have certain kind of methodology to drive the agile culture because they're talking about IT context. That means how they manage the project and how they develop solution, right? So to open is just like you don't have to really design a perfect solution before you work on it and implement it. Instead that you try a little bit, do a prototype, and then launch it, whether it's worked, and then you can get stuff from there. So it's a very different concept. But then at the end of the day, it's talking about the mindset of the people. So again, a good news is always challenging, but as I mentioned before, that change management is workable. I mean, if you have a plan, if you do it consistent way, you can get there. So one of the things that I think that we need to really plan for it, because one of the our IT leaders also shared with me that he already explained the concept to his team for 9 months, but nothing happened. Of course, I tell him that, of course, nothing happened because you just inform them what they should do, but they are not on board and then they don't know how to do it. So you really have to discuss with them the way, understand their thoughts, and then have to plan and then manage the change. And then he suddenly realized that, okay, let's talk about it. So that's the way. So, and then final point, I think is very important. Even within HR, we have different perspective. So we have different kind of level of understanding in terms of digital transformation, different background, different buy-in in terms of that, how we really manage different perspective so that we move the topic forward. So one of the things I highlight here, 1, 2, 3 stage, right? So the first one is talking about robot, right? So we automate the process, and then that means that some tasks actually we don't have to handle it. But it's a positive thing to go open. But one of some feedback I heard that some team members also concerned, because if that's the case, am I going to lose my job because of this, right? So then, as I mentioned, one of the things very important to let the working level understand is how technologies and also human work together. That I don't believe that technologies can replace humans totally. So that's the reason behind it as HR professional or even your junior, how you can really make impact because of your human intelligence. I think it's very important for them to understand so that they can embrace in terms of the journey, they pick up the tool and then they'll say, okay, I have new ideas, I want to work on something else. So that would be the thing. And the second thing is about the data to value, right? So what we call is data analytics. So for HR, to be open, we are not very good in terms of numbers comparatively. I have a little bit background, so I'm better than that. But most of the HR professional, we are very, just like people oriented, right? It's not number oriented. So how we really support this? When we look at our HR leadership team, the company, they are moving into data to insight. So how we can translate this in our HR operation and then also present to our management that we are good at that, and then we also see the value and then how we want the transformation with the team, and then on the other hand, how we enable our employee as well. So the second phase. The third phase, talking about digital transformation. I think if you're there, I think that lucky you. To go on, we are not there yet because transformation, as I shared the picture here, is already a butterfly, right? So the butterfly flies, right? You don't have to ask them to fly, and then they will fly. So I think that's the goal that we want to achieve in terms of agile culture, agile transformation. But we are still in the midst of in between, right? So I think, again, the key is our people, how we enable and support them, let them understand the beauty of this journey, and then support them to understand their role and then how they can really develop and progress. Not talking about the routine tasks, and then actually they can advance their career and development in terms of adding value to not only HR employee and also to the whole organization. So there's something that I want to share. So aligned with the topic, thank you for listening to me in terms of the interesting journey that we have. So it starts with you, right? So what I'm talking about when I start the sharing, and then I ask the question. So where your organization stands in terms of this journey. So how about yourself and how about your team? So hopefully it's on the same position, so it might be easier, but I think it's always different, right? So it doesn't matter, but one of the things that it starts with you, right? So how you really embrace this topic, how you really start to engage your people, I think is very important. Again, as a role model, and then you will get there. So that's today's my sharing. Hopefully my timing is okay. And then I pass over to Wendy, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Honest. Thanks for kicking off a really inspirational talk and about BASF's digital transformation journey. We do have some time for a couple of questions. So maybe should I start asking the first one that we received? How do we change the mindset of a conservative management?
Oh, so you're talking about HR or the company as a whole?
I think maybe both. Yeah, this came from someone that just sent us the question, so maybe we go with both. Yeah.
So it starts with you, right? Let's start with HR. So conservative, yes, but conservative to some extent that I think our company is also conservative. For your information, we have over 150 years history. We have been doing things in a great way, right? But it is a case situation change, right? COVID-19 situation change. There will be certain kind of things that change as well. So how I really change the conservative leaders to be open, I think it's really talking about them, understand their concern and challenge. So I think that they also feel that the worlds are changing, and then why they don't want to change, right? So there's certain kind of thoughts might be also because they may think about, okay, the world is changing, will I lose my job as well, right? So that's something that even I also ask about myself. Actually, if the technology becomes, even advanced, would that be we have robot recruiter, and then we don't need TA person anymore? Yeah, that's something that might happen, could happen. But for me, that I think is very important, as I mentioned, to highlight that is a good thing. How this digital transformation can help in terms of your daily work, and also how that can support you to manage your stakeholder. I think it's very important, right? So I don't have a very clear answer. I mean, it's conversation, communication, as I mentioned. Sometimes you have to ask, and then you hear very interesting perspective, and then you address it, right? So to be open, we cannot afford not to change if the organization or the world is changing. So I think that it's just a matter of time. Give them more time, and then small step, and then also explain to them that actually change can happen. So I think a lot of people say, yeah, this guy won't be changed, right? So for me, it's not the case. Might be more difficult, but it takes time. So yeah, I am not sure whether it helped, but I think that's the rocket science. You really have to communicate and then understand what is the challenge, where he's coming from, and then explain the benefits, and then explain to the team how we work together. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Honest. I think that's time for this session. Thank you once again, Honest. We will have a short intermission as we prepare for our next speaker, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to our HR Virtual Exchange. Next up is a session on the reinvention of HR in the era of digital transformation. May I introduce you to Daryl Parent, Career Business Leader and HR Transformation Practice Leader for Mercer. You okay? Ready, Daryl?
All good.
All right. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. Good afternoon, everyone. Big thank you to Human Resources Online as well as Lighthouse for providing this support for everyone online. And obviously my session is on the reinvention of HR in an era of digital transformation. So we're now in the fourth industrial revolution, the second digital revolution. Digital technology is exponential growth. It's accelerating at such massive pace. If we go back to 1961, and this is one of my favorite movies called Hidden Figures, it actually is set in NASA, and IBM put computers, the big computers, in a big room for the first time. And that was the launch of technology in the workplace and how it impacts and adds value. And going back to that time, there was some culture transformation going on with three African-American women, but also it's about where that technology impacted on that organization. And it takes you through a journey just like it is today. But also I wanted to make the point that if we actually take 1961 to today, all that 60 years of technological advancement, and we cram that into 1 year, that is actually the rate of digital transformation and technology enablement and advancement in today. And that will continue to accelerate technology as new forms of AI and machine learning come about, and how it will slowly and surely start to really dominate, and we'll be interacting with humans in the workplace and beyond. A key part of digital transformation and HR transformation is also the link of the needs of what employees are asking for in the workplace. And really, there's the evolution of the employee experience, and it's in the media, and it's in everywhere. And you can see, on LinkedIn, on other media forms, the explosion of the employee experience and the importance of that to mirror the customer experience with your employees in the same way. The customer journey, the employee journey. And this is an important part of HR transformation and HR digitization as well, because we need to blur the lines between the biological, the physical, and the digital worlds coming together. And we'll certainly see more collaboration and more technology, but also using that technology in the way that we create the employee experience within the workplace. Now today, yesterday and tomorrow, if we look at the journey towards change, you can see that the loyalty contract from the past, post Second World War, it was all about job security, stable job, and being loyal to an employer, that loyalty contract. Then we moved on to more of the engagement contract, which is more about achievement, D&I, diversity and inclusion, and equality. And now today and tomorrow going forward, we're now in the experience age, the experience contract. It's all about purpose and meaning and a sense of belonging and that connection between human and machine. And that will continue to be an integration component as we move in this digital world we live in. And it's about thriving our workplace and impacting on individuals, teams, and the organization. If we look at some of the research Mercer's done around employee experience strategy, there's three core components. You can see on the right side of the screen, you've got the design component. And this is where we really deep dive to understand the needs, the motives, and the pain points, the challenges for each individual employee, and how we can look at those in terms of personas to create the right experiences. Then there's the enablement, and that's where digitization and technology comes in. And then the measurement element, where we need to look at analytics to predict behaviors, but also measure and evaluate that continuous listening strategy with the employee experience through surveys to really understand. If we can have those three components, we can really get an exceptional employee experience strategy put in place. And you can see from some of our research this year that these are the technologies and the platforms and the AI machine learning components that organizations are using to extend and expand that transformation journey in their own organizations. As you can see there, 58% are redesigning their organization to be more employee-centric. 22% of employees say HR processes are becoming digital, but we're losing that human factor. So it's really about getting the right balance between machine and human and getting the right touch points through that employee experience. And this is where HR transformation and the digitization can really add significant value. Here you can see Mercer's integrated strategy. On the far left, you can see there's 4 buckets. Basically, it's critical from an integrated people strategy perspective that you need to look at where the business is going. That's absolutely fundamental. We need to know where the needs are, the operating models that exist, the strategy, the vision, and understand the emerging needs of that business to look at the next phase, which is organizational effectiveness, which really is looking about those capabilities at the organizational level and at the operational level. And then understanding how do we build those skills through reskilling or upskilling pathways, and understanding the pain points that individuals and teams go through and how to evaluate and manage and mitigate those. And then, of course, looking at the right processes. And this is where the digitization of processes come in to add significant value on efficiency and effectiveness and complying that digital employee experience. And then we've got the initiatives and programs that need to be put in place to drive that, as well as the non-HR initiatives around IT infrastructure and processes. Okay, before I jump into HR transformation, I want to take a step back and look at the challenges. And Mercer identified 5 core challenges that looks at how organizations need to move to develop a future-fit workforce for the future. The first one is really future readiness. We need to get an understanding of our current state. Where are we starting from? What's our maturity level? What is our culture like? I think owners talked earlier about the importance of the growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. For me, some individuals need to go if they've got that fixed mindset because they can hinder and derail an organization from transforming. So assessments are becoming an important part of this element. But taking stock of where you're at, where your maturity is, what your processes are like. Is there a lot of red tape in your organization? What do we need to do to manage and simplify some of those? Digitization is one way to go, but we need to know where we're starting from. So that's the first core challenge. The second is, what's your AI and digital strategy? What does your roadmap look like? Do you have the capability to know what that is? Are you going to outsource and work with a consulting firm to identify that digital strategy? More and more organizations are bringing in chief digital officers, chief transformation officers to help lead the leadership team and the organization through this digital transformation. And obviously that will require a lot of job redesign to optimize the workforce and be ready for that combination of AI and human. Future skills are obviously a big conversation at the moment, and it's a huge challenge. How do we build that skills plan for the future? What are the emerging skills we need in our organization? Who has them? Who needs to develop them? Do we need to bring in new capabilities to ensure we are going to be successful? What are the digital skills, the digital literacy that is needed in the future for your organization and your industry in your country? The fourth is really about the new work expectations. We're in this COVID world at the moment, this pandemic, and it's really impacting that flexi work strategy, working remotely. And it's certainly, from our research, is a key factor going forward in the way you design your workplace and optimize your workplace. No longer are the days where you need all your employees in the office, and in fact, not even in the same country. You can do more and more work, we know, outside the office, but different risks come about when you take data outside the core organization in terms of cybersecurity and elements like that. So is your IT security teams have the capability to match that transformation journey in and outside the office as well? And then finally, that talent agility. This is more about having the HR function agile enough to embrace and make sure we have an agile environment to adjust our priorities and our workforce to meet the needs and the priorities of the business and the external environment that we're in, that constantly is changing and evolving. So those are the 5 challenges in building a future workforce. I think it's important now to deep dive, and I think it's important to start with Mercer's point of view around HR transformation. Now, this is a pretty heavy slide. I was always told to have less than 12 words on a slide. What have I done? I've got over 100 there. But I think it's important that we manage the corporate and the people strategy and understand those organizational development levers. Then we've got to look at the functional capabilities by developing that HR roadmap for the future, that blueprint. And what does the IT infrastructure and strategy look like for HR? What's the roadmap? Because they need to be mirrored together to ensure that we have an in-sync strategy for the organization in line with that corporate strategy. And then you've got the HR services. I think they're pretty clear. The organizational, HR organization, which is more on the operating model, the service delivery, the roles and responsibility, and the capabilities required. New roles might emerge as well. And then what we call the HR service prerequisites is more around the technology and the processes. But critically is the governance. And this is often neglected, where they set the rules, reporting lines, make sure there's some kind of standardized process in the way that organizations make decisions when you're embarking on an HR transformation. Because there's got to be levels of accountability put in place. And that's where Mercer can jump in and support organizations to set up those HR service prerequisites. And right at the bottom, you've got the HR foundations. You've got to have the right competency framework to drive the skills, knowledge, and behaviors. You've got to have the organizational structure, which may need to be more agile and more human-centric. Then you've got the persona profiles of your employees to deconstruct the whole entire workforce into persona groups and segment your workforce. How many are Gen Y and Gen Z, millennials? How many are baby boomers? What's the mindset? Where do they sit in the organization? All of this is a really important part of an HR transformation journey. And of course, the job and career architecture and the framework to allow individuals to grow and expand. Because as you know, more and more people want to have more visual understanding of their career pathways. So that's Mercer's point of view on HR transformation. If we look at where HR organizations and functions need to go, they need to focus on 3 things, particularly around an efficient experience. The first one is targeted interactions. So what I mean by targeted interactions is when an individual goes through an employee experience journey through the HR life cycle, so you can imagine from recruitment to onboarding to performance management and the conversations, career development, L&D, all the way through to even offboarding. There's interactions, both human and digital, and you want to make those interactions positive, to give moments that matter, that are personalized to individuals, that connect a sense of belonging. This is the critical number 1 factor for that efficient experience. Radical simplification is the second one, if I can get my words out. And this one's really looking at, all that red tape in the organization. How long does it take to complete a process? What is the decision making that needs to go along? Who needs to sign off? Does it take 5 minutes? Is it digital enabled? Can it be done in a taxi on the way home or on the way to work while you've got that downtime? Or does it take an hour? And is there some issues and challenges to get it through? What are those complications and how do we simplify those? Radical simplification is a need and it's demanded by employees today. And the final one is the automation, the digital technology that will enable you. And you can find some quick wins. You can find some technologies that are very cost effective and subscription based for startups. And then you got very elaborate integrated platforms that can be custom designed and made for organizations that may be more mature along that digital employee experience journey. This is Mercer's strategic approach to an operating model. There's a lot of information here because we do our annual research yearly. But if you look top down, you can see the strategy through to HR administration. At the moment, people are saying that HR administration, in terms of the size of teams, would be dropping off because more and more processes and transactional HR is being digitized. That is so, it is being digitized, but we need those admin individuals. So 48% of our organizations are saying they're actually increasing HR numbers in administration, not decreasing, because we need individuals as HR evolves and transforms itself. Right at the bottom, I want to focus on the lean, agile, and focus. You can see lean, 29% of HR have a fluid HR team, but that means 71% don't. And we really need a fluid team to react quickly and respond quickly to the needs of the business as change is so constant. And if an HR team and an HR function isn't, then they're going to be slow to meet the needs of the business. And that's not good enough. Agile, teams need to be agile. 70% of executives are saying exactly that they want to see their HR more transformative and more agile in the way it operates. And for them to meet that demand of their C-suite is we need to transform and we need to digitize. We need to look outside in and inside out to really understand how do we approach this transformation journey for us. And we need to be focused. 78%, almost 80% of executives think HR needs to rethink its paradigm, reevaluate in line to the employee experience. And I'm hoping this presentation will give you a lot of insights and approaches towards that. This is what we call our target interaction model. Often you'll hear the term target operation model. So we call this Tim over Tom, because what this does is it aligns to the human experience in the way that we're designing the operating model or the interaction model, we call it. And on the far left, you can see the HR end users, from the candidate through to the associates, people managers to top management. So we've really thought through the key users and stakeholders in the HR operating model. And you can see the first tier of interaction at any stage of HR processes is self-service. And this is where technology really adds significant value and saves time, cost, and effectiveness in the way that an organization operates, which is the first point of call for any issues or challenges. And this is where you can self-serve using devices for multiple devices, whether it's your iPhone or your iPad or your laptop and so on. And these are mobile devices that allow you to interact and settle and deal with things quickly and efficiently without any human interaction. And then obviously you've got the HR services, which is starting to, in terms of shared services, starting to remove itself. And this is where you can have the help desk, the payroll activities, and you can have some level of employee interaction with the employee relations coordinator, for example. In the next tier level, you're starting to get more human interaction with HR partners that are more strategic to deal with the execution and the operational activities. And then you've got the people strategy advisor that is engaging more at the top management level, dealing with the communities of competence, which is really at a local level, the personalized level, because each organization, each market is different. At the communities of excellence level, it's where you've got more of the global standards, the 80-20 rule of thumb, so to speak, where you have 80% following the global standards and 20% following the local needs to meet the compliance and regulatory requirements. And having an agile PMO is an important part of that can easily respond to the needs of the organization. You have a pool of talent available to allow successful change and agility along the way of business and HR transformation. So that's a brief introduction to Mercer's target interaction model. Here's the framework of which we use. And basically, we understand the strategy of the business, then the people, then we move on to the functional strategy, and then ensuring that we have the external best practices. But Mercer has a unique tool which is called the HR operations scanner. And what it does is it assesses time and task and cost factors to each individual function within the HR function, all right? So all the different departments. And it evaluates the time to task and cost factors associated. It also looks at the value and the prioritizational needs going forward, and then comes up with some benchmarking data to support how that HR function should look in terms of capabilities, size of teams against benchmark data. And then obviously we provide a lot of support and advisory on the HR service delivery, the governance and the structure, as well as the HR processes or redesign processes, as well as the technology selection, the technology review, which is a critical part of identifying what's the right technology, what are the right functionalities for your organization going forward, and then the capabilities and the competencies. These are all key components of Mercer's HR transformation framework, and they're critical for any organization embarking on an HR transformation. I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to move quickly here. Process of redesign, you can see we need to prioritize. You can see HR customer personas need to be developed. At Mercer, we do this through workshops for each of the processes. So we're co-creating, understanding the intricacies of each organization and working with the teams to make sure that whatever redesign of a process is developed with the team that are understanding the business more than anyone. And we'll do that through best practices to prepare that blueprint for the future and getting the right processes for your organization going forward. Here's some technology partners that we use. Obviously, there's a lot. Mercer tends to be technology agnostic. We don't have a preferred vendor. We basically work with clients to identify the right technologies that support you. And obviously, there's a spectrum of technologies for you and AI platforms that you can leverage off. Obviously, the integrated people platforms or talent platforms are most critical, and cloud-based seems to be growing significantly. One part that's critical in an HR transformation journey is change management. And this is around getting an understanding of that digital transformation strategy, getting alignment with HR, with the business strategy, and getting the messaging right, the targeted messaging for all the different stakeholders and end users, both internally and externally. And working with leadership to get the right messaging there, getting the right alignment, engaging with the different stakeholders, communicating the different stages of the transformation, and giving them regular updates that are factual and accurate to build trust and buy-in along the transformation journey, getting training in place, and sustainability. These are critical factors for success. You want to de-risk change management, set change strategy, a detailed execution plan, understand the readiness factor, where you're starting from and where you want to go, engage, and then communicate, train, and build those accountabilities. Build a dashboard or a scorecard so you can evaluate the measure impact and the ROI at some stage. If we look at the most admired HR companies in the world, there's a list of those. And interestingly, there's the most admired companies. But what you'll see is that 45% of those, all right, are because of HR leading the way. Well, that's what I'm saying. So HR plays a significant role in identifying the right value proposition and the success of those companies if we get the right operating model and the right HR transformation journey in sync with those business priorities. Okay, so I'm just recapping up here. Energizing the experience is critical. There's 4 E's that Mercer play by. You've got to be empathetic to your organization. You've got to enrich and help people with purpose. You've got to embrace, make them feel a sense of belonging through that process, and efficiency is also quite critical. So make it simple, as I said earlier, and the benefits are significant. Finally, make sure you work closely with the managers. The people managers are the ones at that coalface, that interface. They need to be involved so they can create a positive, powerful employee experience with their teams. Start with experience that can be designed quickly and enable you to get some quick wins and success. Always consider the health and wellness and the flexibility priorities. COVID is a perfect example of the importance of that. And finally, design thinking is a great way to co-create, to manage that employee experience and that HR digitization, and then use those targeted interaction model to design your HR. And finally, one quote to finish: "A future unridden is a future of opportunity. Seizing that opportunity demands brave transformation, and that starts with you."
All right. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you so much. I think we might have we have time for maybe one question.
Okay.
So the first question we've got is, how does digital transformation improve the employee's experience during work?
In a lot of ways. As I said, if an employee can solve problems quickly themselves using a mobile device, that's going to make them happy, right? So digital and HR transformation needs to bring in technology to ensure that successful interaction can occur to make employees happy. There's one example.
All right. I think that's about time for today. And thank you, Daryl. Once again, it's Daryl from Mercer.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We will actually now go into a short intermission in preparation for our next speaker, who is Angus Chung from Adobe. Please stay tuned as we have more fantastic content coming up, and we'll be back shortly. All right, thanks for waiting and welcome back. Our next session is Reimagining Human Capital Management, or HCM. This will be presented by Angus Chung, sitting next to me, Regional Business Lead in Greater China for Adobe. You ready, Angus? All right, okay, let's hand over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's Angus here, and I look after Adobe's Document Cloud business across Greater China region. So I think today the topic, as mentioned, we want to share more as a technology enabler or provider. How do we see HCM, Human Capital Management, and how actually technology can enable it or transform it under the new normal? So let's talk about some trends that we've seen over the time with our customers, global enterprises. So we've seen, obviously, the expectation has changed. People expect to work in under the new normal, working under new ways, and they have a new definition of collaboration. Okay, and also employee experience are being prioritized by HR professionals as one of the key KPIs. Security also being brought up because traditionally when we are working face-to-face, everything happens within company network, right? But when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to new way of working, now things tend to happen outside of organization environment. So security and compliance become one of the key topic within the HR community. So talking about KPI, I mentioned I had a touch on it just now. I think these three things or these three priority remain to be the top KPIs for HR professional. So recruiting great talent. I think this is, as always, it's one of the key initiatives for HR professional. Secondly is how do you break out or break into the silo of data across the organization? You have HCM data across your HR system, your core system, your payroll system, etc. And third, again, another very important KPI for HR professional, it's how to drive productivity under the new way of working. So what are the factors actually hindering our HR professionals to achieve this KPI? We see a couple of things. From a processes perspective, especially we see 80% of HR processes still rely on the paper. So you might be digitalizing 80% of one process, and the last mile, somehow it still involves a paper, right? A printer, a scanner. And also we see a silo within the organization of different data touch point. Various touch point with manual processes. So you need to manually input data in one system and then pull it out and then manually input it in another system. And that creates a very complicated user experience for both of your employees or even your outside customers. And that also bring up some of the unseen compliance or security risk, because a lot of human intervention are being done within a single process. So these are the factors that we're seeing hindering digital transformation or transforming HCM. Simply put, everything takes too long. Just an example I can quote to you, 54% of HR documents are mix of paper and digital. Okay, so think about your offer letter. Think about your onboarding processes. Think about your exit processes. And 37% of HR professionals actually said over 40% of the HR documents are completely paper-based. So none of the components are actually digitalized. So how Adobe as a technology provider can help you reimagine how you deal with HCM, and how do we enable you as a technology provider? So summarizing what I've shared just now, three key things that we've seen from a technology perspective. Digital silos, again, I'm not going to drill down to that, but it basically means you have different data points across different systems. And there's a last mile disconnection. What does that mean is, throughout the business processes or HR process, you have 80% or 90% of the time are already digital. And the last mile, executing a process, approving a process, signing a document, involves a paper. And last is compliance requirement. Under the new normal, people working outside of the organizations, can we ensure the certain compliance measurement being put in place to protect HR when it comes to dealing with a lot of personal information? So these are the key challenges as a technology provider sees. And how do we actually help? Adobe actually can help with transforming your HR processes with e-signature. If you look at some of the overseas or MNCs companies, a lot of their recruitment process are actually done without having the candidate to be in the office to execute the offer letter. Myself, when I joined Adobe, I was traveling when they sent me the offer letter. And I looked at it on my phone, and everything looks okay. As negotiated, then I signed it on my phone, and I continue with my trip. So these are the things that HR should be really thinking about. And so simply put, we're seeing a lot of companies are putting or embedding e-signature into the HR process to drive digital document execution, to reduce manual tasks by connecting different HR system and process, and most importantly, ensure the process is compliant from a security and also regulations point of view. This is an example that I can help you visualize how does that work from an offer letter process. So this is a general or traditional offer letter process within a recruitment process. So you have an offer letter, you print it out, your HR manager or hiring manager sign off, and find a printer, find a scanner. This is probably the most difficult part under the current situation. And then you scan and email to the candidate. So look at this, the bottom part, that's the candidate steps. So he needs to, again, find a printer. I don't have a printer at home. So if an employer asks me to do that, I will be thinking, they are not giving me a pretty good experience as a start, right? So anyway, he needs to find a printer, find a pen to sign, and then find a scanner again, and then email it back to your HR recruiter. And then the recruiter needs to manually store that copy of HR letter or offer letter into the HR system. So let's look at how a company has been digitalizing these processes. So some of the companies embedding e-signature in the offer lettering process. So basically, one button the way you generate an offer letter, which is approved from your HR system, and then automatically being routed to your hiring manager to sign off. And then it will be automatically routed to the candidate who can actually sign with their mobile. And all the data, all the signature can be automatically extracted and input back in your HR system. If you look at the difference in steps, we're talking about 10 steps or more with traditional processes, but after having e-signature being embedded in your HR process or HR offering letter process, you can see there's only 4 steps left. So these are some of the HR use case. I talked about offer letter, but across HR, across an employee life cycle, we've seen there are a lot of different use cases. You can actually digitalize the last mile of the process execution. For example, offer letter I talked about, some very senior hiring, you probably need an NDA in place before you actually discuss with the business or the offer with them. And when it comes to onboarding, you hired someone. You need to collect the information. You need them to sign off a compliance declaration letter. You need them to sign off a conflict of interest letter. These are all part of onboarding processes. Imagine how many signatures you are actually requiring your talent to sign off when they are onboarded. So these are all the things that you can digitalize and transform the last mile of the experience for your employee or potential employee. So these are some of the examples that, over the globe, around the globe, these companies have been trying to digitalize this process actually before the pandemic. And so if you look at, these companies, they are doing okay, actually. They are recovering okay. Sanofi, healthcare company, HP, eBay, these companies are recovering okay because they have already gone down to that transformation path before the pandemic. So some of the customer success story we can share. HP, it's a company that everyone knows, right? I'm sure you own one of their laptop somehow, before or now. MasterCard, credit card provider, Trinity Health, healthcare provider. So these are the results that they achieved. For example, in annual saving, hard cost saving. Imagine how many money you're spending on managing paper-based document, storage, delivery, filing. So imagine that. And ROI, Illumina is a healthcare company. They achieve an ROI within just 1 week. So 100 ROI. So I'm not going to go into detail with that, but last but not least, I think when it comes to benefit, transforming your employee life cycle, we see from a recruitment perspective, you can secure top talent faster, and you can provide a better candidate experience. By embedding e-signature in your processes, you can actually increase your employee productivity, both HR and also the new employee. And last but not least, when it comes to exiting of an employee life cycle, you gain more visibility on how they're exiting your organization, and also reduce some of the legal and ensure some of the compliance that you have in place for your HR processes by digitalizing the last mile of your document processes. So Adobe is a global e-signature platform provider. I know you probably know us because of PDF, right? But we have actually in the e-signature space for a very, very long time. We are one of the biggest provider of e-signature platform, and we are a clear market leader, and we provide best-in-class enterprise-grade solutions that we can help you digitalize your entire HR journey when it comes to last mile of execution. I think that's my sharing.
Oh, great, Angus. Thank you so much. We have time for one question. Would you say that automation initiatives are foolproof?
It's foolproof.
It's foolproof. Can you kind of elaborate and expound on that,
please? So you
please?
said the digital transformation.
I believe this person who wrote this question is asking automation initiatives, whether it's foolproof or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to automation, we gotta have a definition around it. So I've seen a first level automation, basically data being inputted or exchanging between different systems. That's one kind of automation. I've seen more advanced automation, which actually you install a robot into your laptop or your system environment, so they do all the manual work themselves without someone actually monitoring them. I wouldn't say it's
Foolproof.
All right. I wouldn't say it's foolproof. It happens to, mistakes happens to the best of us. But I would say from compliance or risk perspective, I've seen over and over again, companies are able to reduce compliance and security risk because of inputting certain level of automation in their processes.
All right. I think we actually do have time for one more question. How would the dynamics of an employee's experience be with digital transformation strategy in place?
So we're talking about experience, right?
Yes.
I've shared my personal experience when I joined Adobe way before the pandemic. So I am actually very impressed because my previous employee actually sent me, previous employee sent me a deck of document of offer letter. And then I was having a few offers in place, and that was the best offer, but it actually get me thinking, this company is kind of not so modern, right? It needs me to print out the document and sign and then find a printer. I would be thinking about how my experience would be looking like if I joined their company, from onboarding, from a picking up perspective. Of course, I did join that company at the end because of the offer, but I think these kind of things will actually stop or hinder HR professionals to get the best talent in the market.
Right. So HR managers, remember to really start digitally transforming, or
Trust me,
you'll
it
be
matters.
losing great talent. All right, thank you so much, Angus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right, we will actually come back after a short intermission as we prepare for our next speaker. Our next speaker would actually be Peter Tong from Tricor. Please stay with us. Don't leave, because we will have a lot of great content coming back real soon. All right, thank you so much. All right, welcome back once more, everybody. Hong Kong is known for sky-high rents, and both employer and employees can benefit from the rental reimbursement scheme. Up next, we have Peter Tung, Head of Personal Tax from Tricor Hong Kong, to walk us through RRS and how to efficiently process it through digitalization. You ready, Peter?
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. I'm handing it over to Peter.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. So in the upcoming 30 minutes, and I'm going to talk about what the upcoming 30 minutes talk about the issues that we observed in the markets and how do we actually use digital products to counter those issues.
Nice to meet you.
But to start first, maybe give you like a 30 seconds or 1 minute to give you an introduction of Tricor and also myself. So for Tricor, we've got like 47 offices worldwide. We have a headquarters based in Hong Kong. But in terms of, you can see in this chart, we actually offer quite a wide range of services. And for rental reimbursement, it's actually part of the business services of Tricor. Besides business services, we do actually have corporate services and investor services. And talking about the digital products or digitalization products, for corporate services, we do have like e-signature. And in terms of like, say, for example, for the meetings, we offer both digital and physical meetings that we call the hybrid meetings that are tailor-made for board members of the companies or even for shareholders or investors. So coming back to the topic today, I've said for myself to give you an introduction for myself is, for myself and Peter, so I actually within the space about the tax services or the rental reimbursement services for around 15 years. Before I actually come from a Big Four company. So, and rental reimbursement has been actually my core services before. So I do actually design some rental reimbursement scheme, update of the rental reimbursement scheme, and also on the administration. So to start off is probably I will give you a very brief introduction of rental reimbursement and also talking about what the issues that we actually observe in the markets and then tell you about the strength of Tricor. So Hong Kong has been in this place famous for high rental expenses. So and people has been spending a lot of money on rental. Under the Hong Kong tax legislation, the Inland Revenue Ordinance, it actually has a preferential tax treatment when it talks about the benefits on housing that is provided by the employer. So what does it mean? It means that the high rental prices will not be included as like a taxable income directly when you calculate the assessable income. But instead, a rental value that is in most of the cases, which is a lower value compared with the high actual rental will be included. So and you can see this kind of arrangement is the employer has to actually provide the employee with the place of accommodation. And that is what we call like a corporate lease arrangement. It's not very common nowadays. And what we've seen in the market now is employee get a place of the rental, ask for the refund from the employer. That is kind of the rental reimbursement that is more common in place. So you can see the arrangement under the tax legislation is also quite simple. If the employer can see the employee pay the rent and I reimburse that amount, you can enjoy the benefits of rental reimbursement. So it sounds like easy, but you can see also based from the expectation from the Inland Revenue Department, they actually shift kind of the administration burden to the employer. Meaning, as an employer, you need to actually set up a system to put in place to make sure your employee has been spending the money on rental. So you may ask, what triggers some questions on rental reimbursement or some of the questions that we've seen coming from the tax authority? So I would say as an employer, you usually reflect the rental reimbursement arrangement on the tax form, that is the employer's tax return. So if everything goes smooth, probably you're fine. But in reality, probably some cases that may trigger potential inquiries from the tax authority. That may due to the reasons a mismatch of the reporting of income between the employer and the employee. And sometimes the employee may argue and send an objection letter to the Inland Revenue Department, I want something different. And in some situation, there may be some double benefits that are claimed by both the taxpayers and the spouse. So I would say all these kind of the issues are mainly down to one main reason, a miscommunication or not enough communication with the employee. Because the employee they do not really know what the rental reimbursement they should do or what it can achieve. So I will actually divide what are the requirements from the Inland Revenue Department or how does it work in the market. So I would divide it into three main parts. The first part is the entitlement. That is really important. That is to check to who can actually join this rental reimbursement and how much they can claim. And the second one is a system to control to make sure that the rental has been spent. And the third one is actually on the documents. So when we talk about the digitalization, how does it impact these three main areas? The first one for entitlement is more about like how do you actually make the process more efficient? Does your system actually enable the taxpayer, that is the employee or the approver, to check the records more easily so that when they approve the claim or approve the applications, they can approve it more in a digital way. As for the control, it's about managing the deadlines, managing the workflow management. So for rental reimbursement, it's actually a time-sensitive arrangement. Talking about time-sensitive, meaning that you can't really do the rental reimbursement claim on a retrospective basis. But unfortunately, in the market, we've seen there are quite a lot of cases that are done on retrospectively. Of course, this may not be something ideal. This is maybe due to the reason that the mismatch of the workflow. So how do you actually use a digital process to make sure that you process the application or ask the employees to make the applications on time? You probably don't want to, on one hand, you want to be in compliance, but on the other hand, you probably don't want to upset the employee. So for verification, it's down to the documents. Probably for rental reimbursement, we've seen in the market, some companies still do process rental reimbursement on paper basis. Say if you had quite a lot of number of the cases for the employees, you do pile up a big chunk of the papers. So how do you actually reship those documents more easily? That is something that the HR should be thinking of. So what are the common issues that we've seen in rental reimbursement? For a very standard and straightforward rental reimbursement, the process is the employee raises his hand, I want to join the rental reimbursement scheme. So as an employer, I will just document the arrangement. Okay, you can join it. So by the time at the year end, maybe you give me back the documents and I approve it. That's it. That sounds very straightforward, isn't it? But in reality, things happen. Sometimes you may have some, say for example, some naughty employees that are always late in applications, but probably you won't talk about that they are naughty employees because those employees are always the senior people, the senior management. So, but it's actually more down to, I would say, it's the nature of the lease in Hong Kong. For the Hong Kong, under the standard terms of the lease, it's actually on the 2 years terms. And for the first year, it's usually a fixed lease or the debt lease, we call it. And starting from the second year, the employee or the tenant can start to negotiate with the landlord. I want to make some changes. I want to negotiate for the rental pricing. If I'm not happy, maybe I want to move. So you can see, starting from the second year, it can create issues or problems to an HR, because as an HR, they may not want to receive too many changes. What happens if you receive too many changes? It creates all those workflow issues. Based on our experience, say, for example, if you have 20 plus employees, that can create a very unfortunate situation that is very hard to manage. So for the applications, it's mainly down to some of the issues are, in case if your lease is not simple, it's actually a joint lease. What happens in case sometimes the lease is, you do not actually rent it from, you actually rent it from your mom or from your parents. That is called related party transactions. And sometimes maybe for the claims, do you just approve the rental receipts and some other kinds of the documents? I guess it's down to all these processes, the workflow. The main issue for HR, the headache is, how do you manage the status? Say you have 20 or 30 employee applicants. I want to know the status for all the employees. It's not really possible if you don't really have a system in place. So in the upcoming slides, I'm going to show you 3 cases, 3 real cases. On the left side is actually a very traditional form. It's very common. You can see from this kind of form, from all the rental reimbursement scheme now, a standard address, the period you want to claim, how much you want to claim, and then maybe some declaration you need to declare, and you just sign it. So the background of this case is the employee is called Miss July Lee. So July actually lives in the place, and his lease is actually going to expire in December. But somehow in the market, she is able to find a better place. You can see it's 26th floor upper, and the rental is actually cheaper. But what they get from the market is the landlord is not able to wait the expiry of your old lease. So you have to actually start your lease earlier. And that happens a lot in the market. You can see from the employee's perspective, I'm reflecting the actual reality. I actually pay the rent, again, double rents for December. So when I complete the tax forms, I just reflect the reality. That's what I have. So as an HR perspective, of course, the first thing you will have to do is on the eligibility checking. Hang on, under our policy, you can only make the claim for 12 months. If you are making the claim for 13 months, that will probably have an issue. So what I need to do, maybe I need to write back down an email and ask the employee to please amend back your claim, explain the policy again. That can create some issues, back and forth issues. Say if you have a digital system or a more modern approach, of course, the employee probably can make the application online anytime that he likes or she wants. In the system, if you can provide some validation rules, pop up the message, remind the employee. Of course, we always say prevention is better than cure. If you can pop up some message, highlight to the employee, make sure, hey, your new applications overlap with your existing applications. So if the employee actually get noticed upfront, it can actually kill down all the back and forth communication later on. And of course, in the system, the employee is able to retrieve the documents or the records more easily. You can see there is a reimbursement start date, when does it end. So that's very easy to navigate. So say for the case study 2, the second example, we've got now, Eunice, Miss Eunice Ho. So Eunice is actually a new joiner to the company. She joined the company on the 2nd of September. So with a monthly salary for 40,000. So from the employee's perspective, again, probably roughly, I joined the firms up to March, is around 7 months. So that is most of the employees that they will do. They will just complete it 7 months. Again, from the HR perspective, I'm checking whether it's valid. Hang on, the policy mentions you can't really make the claim reimbursement before for the period that before you join the company. The first thing the HR is to dig out back the employee records to check when does that employee join the company. And then second is to go back to the rental reimbursement policy. That the employee is actually making a claim that may be more than what we allowed. And the third one is back on the calculation. Probably should I actually use back a calculator, or better in some way I use back an Excel to do the calculation for the employee and ask the employee to revise the form again. So what will be our solution? First part, for new joiner to the rental reimbursement, usually under the scheme, it set out some deadline. So for the applications for digital products, it enables to see like the date of submission. You can see very easily. The employee submit the form on the 11th of September. Probably it's in line with the policy, so we actually accept it. And from the employee's perspective, you know what? Although the company has the rental reimbursement scheme, they do roll out the scheme and ask the employees when they are on board, please read our policy before you apply. But in 90% of the cases, I can guarantee you, the employees only cares what they have on hand. That is only the lease agreement. They probably won't care about the policy. So from the employee's perspective, I will actually only input the information I can easily find. That is the lease agreement. So you can see I will just input the lease start date, the end date, and how much I paid to my landlord. That's it. So you can see in the system, the actual amount is 20,000. The system, of course, we've got some validation rules to tell and remind the employee, hey, your reimbursement claim actually may exceed their policy. And also, we also remind you, you actually joined the company on the 2nd of September. That's why the system will do actually some auto-fixing so that the employee do not actually need to bother what is the rental reimbursement scheme and how do I actually manipulate the date. So here is the claim section, and you can see the beauty for having a system is to do the calculation automatically. In the system, you can see as an HR, when you do the tax reporting, you probably know there are two numbers that you probably need for the tax reporting. One is how much you pay to the landlord, the tenants pay to the landlord. That is the total claims. Another part is how much as an employer we agree to reimburse back to you. So you can see these two numbers are automatically calculated and easily retrieved. So for the third case study, it's a more complicated case. So we've got Jackie. Jackie is a case, he and his spouse actually got a place for rental. It's a joint lease. So the monthly rental is 30,000. And for the Hong Kong lease, I guess most HR welcome the lease that start on the 1st of each month because it's easy. But in reality, most of the leases do not actually start from the first of the month. So it actually starts from 15th of July. From the employee's perspective is, roughly 15 July is roughly half of the month. So I just input 15,000 because I'm already good enough because I know how much I want to claim. 30,050, I put down 15,000. I just times it 8.5. But one thing that complicated issue is, and that happens especially for the past few months when the economy is not that good. I negotiate with my landlord. I want to bargain for rental reductions. So the landlord has actually agreed to reduce my rental for 2 months. So what Jackie has done is, he sent back an email to the HR, hey, I've got the rental receipts. I attach here for your approval, but something I managed to get reductions for my rental expense. How do I actually fix it on the form? Then you may receive that sort of the inquiries. if you kind of do it in a more traditional way. So from the HR perspective, the first thing is, hey, this part is a monthly, it's a joint list. Make sure you check the amount whether it's correct. That is the first thing. And the second part is, how do I actually do the calculation? Do I actually do the pro rata based on months, or should I do it based on number of days? If you have two administrators, and if you don't really document those calculation methods in your policy, one HR may take one basis, another HR may take another basis. That can create issues when it comes to the actual administration. So how do we see when we put down into a digital solution? First part, sometimes the policy may ask the employee to declare that you don't have any relationship with landlord, because the system do have that kind of declaration. When someone declares it's actually a joint lease, of course, he or she needs to put down the actual rental he is paying. So you can see in this case, she put down, it's a joint lease, I put half of the rent, I declared it. And then the system kind of remind the employees, what's your entitlement for the rental claim? And here you can also see the documents that is actually uploaded and stored easily, can be retrieved very easily. So let's see what happens in the claim form. On the claim form is you reflect the information. Also, we are talking about the 2 months reductions. The employee is able to see my original under the contract. I paid 30, but I claimed 15. So especially for the 2 months reductions, I put a note to the HR, to Peter in this case. So when I received that message, I also double checked the months for the reductions. Hang on, the companies originally agreed to reimburse you to the 15,000, but somehow because of those unforeseen situation, that may happen at the year end. So you probably need to do some kind of adjustment. For the adjustment, you actually you have to actually figure out. But in the system, you can see on the right part of the column, those adjustments actually can be done in the system as well. So besides that, you are able to keep track of all the employees' conversations. What have you seen to the employees, say the employee history, without going back to the emails, archive, and search the status. Say for this employee, they are missing the receipts for that month. So that can be actually very easily to retrieve. So you can see, I guess for the future of the HR for nowadays, not necessarily the future. Is for now, we are talking about the initiatives. How do you tie the goals or the business initiatives as an HR role? You probably won't do the traditional ways of like just do the applying leave, approving leave, or doing kind of the payroll. It's more like on the HR initiatives, rolling out the HR initiatives to the employees. How do you improve the employee's experience? And rental reimbursement is actually one of the initiatives when we talk with our clients. How do you make your employees happy? How do you actually do? So this kind of the things that HR probably want to know. And talking about Tricor's advantage or Tricor's strength, we've been actually processing those rental reimbursement claims for several thousands of years. We've got a wide range of clients, ranges from we start to do the claim for a handful of employees, like 1 or 2 cases. And for our largest clients, we managed to do the claim for close to 1,000 a year. So we've been very experienced doing that kind of the rental reimbursement as well. And what I want to highlight for the e-rental portal, and I'm going to show you a video, and that's what will last for around 1 minute. And please show the video.
Talk to us and click to Great. Are you tired of managing the rental reimbursement scheme? We understand that reviewing employees' eligibility, calculating the approved claim amount, keeping track of supporting documents are time-consuming and tedious for your HR function. Now, Tricor has a solution for you. Our easy-to-use e-rental portal is your time saver. It empowers your HR team to manage rental claims efficiently. Tricore's e-rental portal comes with powerful features. Depending on the criteria of your rental reimbursement scheme, Tricore's e-portal can automate the application review and rental claim calculation process. Our email alert system informs your HR administrator on pending applications and reminds your employees if they are required to submit outstanding supporting documents. All supporting documents are filed electronically, and you can access application status anytime. You can also keep track of all the communications with your employees through built-in chat box. To experience the benefits of our e-rental portal, visit our website or scan our QR code for more information.
So click to great. So for the benefits of the e-rental portal, I would say this is actually an internal, our Tricore internal developed portal. Having that to say that it's actually an internal developed portal, meaning that it's actually we can customize the portal based on what your rental reimbursement requirements. And it's actually created and built based on the common market practice that we've observed in the markets. So it's already catered for most of the companies that are already doing your rental reimbursement. So I've already shown you some free cases that highlight some of the features here, but probably one thing to know is probably want to also highlight is on the workflow management and auto reminders. For the workflow management, is talking about the size in case if you have employees for like 20 cases. Probably you also want to send out reminders to and alerts to the employees to make sure they do the claim on time. So some of the key features here to have a snapshot is about the email alerts and reminders, e-storage documents, workflow management, and I guess last but not least is about the built-in interface that can integrate back to your payroll system and tax reporting system. So that's pretty much the end of our sharing today.
Great. Thanks, Peter. There's definitely time for a couple of questions. So I'm going to go into the first one. The first question is, do you have any similar platform or services that cater to other HR initiatives?
Okay, thanks. Talking about the HR initiatives, probably is I guess it's nowadays it's very common. You have when employees getting the pay slips, you are actually getting kind of retrieve it from a more secured portal instead of getting from the emails. So Tricore actually do provide e-pay slip services, and on top of that, like probably I also mentioned earlier, is about some of their leave. When the employees try to make the leave, they probably want to digitalize the processes. How do you want the employees to make the applications easily? How do you navigate your entitlement more easily? So we do also offer e-leave system that can also be customized. Again, it's also something that we built internally. And talking about those kind of the e-leave, that reminds me on one of the headaches from the HR is related to Employment Amendment Ordinance and what we call the 713 calculation. So you can see there it involves some kind of the calculation that involves the past 12 months. And then you probably need to calculate the pay more accurately. But for Tricore, in our payroll system, we also built in kind of this logic and validation rules. And talking about our experience or all these services, I guess based on our experience working with clients, you may already have some kind of the third-party vendor tools, say the Workday system. And Tricore is actually very experienced working with other systems, meaning that we are able to build in some integration files because our systems are internally developed. So we can able to manage our integration file back to the HR, your HR system. And one thing we commonly seen is that we want to mention is about the single sign-on, meaning the employee probably they don't want to remember too many different profiles or logins. So we can actually create this single sign-on so as the employee just to remember one single set of logins.
Okay, and there's one more question. What are the issues or challenges when implementing the system, and how do you solve it?
Okay. Talking about managing this kind of system, I guess depending on your company size and populations, because managing the size of a very few employees or different companies are quite different. For a popular size or a big MNC clients, their expectation, especially say on the data privacy on employees, or even on their IT system, their expectation is actually very high. But for Tricor, we actually already got some certifications and work with this kind of different FI clients that we've already passed all these tests. But when it actually comes to the actual integration or the implementation, I guess you need to buffer some time, at least for 1 month or 2 months, when you actually consider to try to shift back your digitalize your process from manual to the digital products. Especially when we do kind of one experience that we work with the clients is, some say for now in September, you may already have some existing approved applications for your rental reimbursement. So you probably need to build in some time to allow us how do you transform those already approved applications into our own system.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your insights and also to show how you digitalize the RRS process. So we are soon to start our final session today. Join us next for our final closing keynote panel after the intermission. Thank you so much for staying with us. We are at our last and final session, and we will kick off very shortly. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We are at our last and final session, which will nicely wrap up our program today with a panel discussion on HR tech innovations and how it will redefine your workplace. So moderating our panel is once more our fantastic speaker, Daryl Perrant from Mercer. And joining him is Winnie Jin, Head of Human Resources for Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan with JLL. And we also have Joel Cruzado, Senior Manager of Learning and Development, Asia Pacific at Starbucks. And finally, Eric Goh, Head of Human Resources at Evolution Wellness, Hong Kong. So handing it over to Daryl and other panelists.
Thanks, Wendy. And welcome, Winnie. And hi to Joel and Eric online. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for this final session. I have a question, and I'm sure everyone's pondering this, but let's start on the positive side about opportunities with HR digitization. Maybe, Winnie, we'll start with you. What do you see as those opportunities for businesses when we look at HR transformation?
Okay. So I think traditionally when we talk about those of the HR transformation, especially digitalization, definitely is really kind of releasing the time and energy for the HR professional to work on those of the more value-added thing. But I would say this is more kind of the mid-term and long-term. Right. But I would say in terms of the immediate term is really can see those of the efficiency coming through. Sure. Because we spend a lot of time doing a lot of the donkey work, a lot of the repetitive administrative work, which digital technology innovation definitely can help.
Great, great. Thanks, Winnie. And maybe, Joel, do you have any points of view from a learning and development perspective on digitization and how that could enable and create opportunities for businesses?
Well, you said, if life gives you lemon, make lemonade out of it, right? So in this situation, it kind of forces our 14 countries that we work with to try, digital learning. So this is an opportunity where, Starbucks is about connectedness. So it's about face-to-face training. But in this situation, we try to put in our innovative and entrepreneurial mindset and say, hey, this is time to us to revisit our infrastructure and do what we can in order to connect with one another.
Thank you, Joel. Eric, anything to add from you?
Not really. I do really agree with Winnie in a sense that the immediate so-called the things that is the efficiency, we increase the productivity and to make the whole process more seamless and more efficient in this digitalization of the HR platforms itself.
Great. I definitely agree. I mean, efficiency and effectiveness is definitely the most critical. But there's also the employee value proposition with that employee experience. And I think I spoke a little bit about that earlier. But I'll go back to Winnie. So in terms of examples of, how HR digitization can positively impact on a business from your experiences, any examples you could share?
Let me use a very simple one. When I kind of are working as an HR business partner role, I always kind of being asked about providing some sort of the data analytics side. In the past, when we don't really have kind of this access, a self-service to our HR system, we normally ask the team to kind of back-end team to produce or provide those of the report, and then we need to do a lot of the manual work to make sure that that product is kind of suitable for my purpose. But when I kind of complete that, it's quite, even I am very efficient, probably it's 3 or 4 days later, because I need to wait for the team to provide the information and then I have to produce the report. After we have the self-service, I really can do it very quickly. Even I kind of a call for the report, I can kind of schedule the report on a very recurring basis. And those are the things from the client perspective, when we deal with the client, they are really shocked by our efficiency and how quick that we can pull together. And even I can show on the iPad or computer, etc., very easily. Any device I can show them a quick kind of a dashboard. Right. I think this is definitely a value added to them.
Absolutely. And I think from my experiences, the ability to personalize and allow individuals to connect with the technology and it to be customized for them and their own needs is fantastic, which is a great advantage point for technology. Joel, again, I'll go to you from maybe an L&D perspective. Do you see any, positive impacts or examples you could share around that L&D digitization experience?
Yes, for training, we've employed, we got into this digital flywheel of mobile order and pay, wherein, you use the technology to place in your order and pick up on demand whenever you can in the store that nearest you. So we have put training on that aspect. We also did delivery program through digital training. So there are ways to be able to still stay connected with your customers and your community and your employees, or what we call partners in the stores.
Great. Thanks, Joel. Eric, I'm going to go to you about challenges. Okay, so what are some of the immediate challenges when identifying and implementing, any form of HR digitization or technology? From any of your experiences, what are some of those challenges with implementation?
I think majority of us will always think that the main challenges is the buy-in from the management team. But in fact, for my situation, the other way around is the buy-in from the staff itself. Because they are too used to the manual kind of processes, I fill up the hard copy of the leave form. Why must I now key in my ID, log in my password, and I still have to apply my leave, and then I still have to wait for the approval. Right. If I fill in the manual form, I just walk to my manager's room and decide it kind of situation. But of course, definitely, we have to so-called sell to them in terms of the effectiveness and the efficiency of the digitalization and the pros of the digitalization, which they can on time, real time to check their leave balance, their pay slip, their information itself. It really takes quite a bit of time to really have their buy-in. For my scenario, it's the other way around. It's not so much about my management team of supporting us to spend the budget. It's more onto the user to buy in on us moving into a digitalization HR platform.
Great, Eric. I completely agree. From my experience, that buy-in and that co-creation as early as possible with all the stakeholders is quite critical. And I'm sure Winnie agrees as well. But any kind of challenges from your point of view, Winnie?
Definitely. I think when we ran out the project, the whole global project in terms of using the HR system, the number one thing is everyone in terms of different country, in terms of territory, in terms of their culture, in terms of mindset, in terms of their way of working, the practice are so different. And it's really difficult to put everyone into kind of the one direction, one single point. How to kind of giving that customization. We always said that it's not tailor-made at all because we don't want to. But we can customize because of the jurisdiction different, in terms of some of the regulation is different. But how to balance that and how to kind of make sure that this is not about the regulation, but we acknowledge the culture is so deep rooted. How to make that balance, and also in terms of the global, the regional point of view versus the local market point of view, the business leader, kind of the power in terms of who make that decision. Those are the conversation, and I completely agree with you in terms of getting them on board at the really early stage, let them understand those are the business case, the benefit, and let them to kind of own that, the process in terms of discussion and debating. And we actually allow a lot of the discussion, debating, because we believe that if they are not kind of a part of the solution, they won't be really understanding what is the goal that we are working towards.
Sure, thank you. Eric, anything else from you in terms of challenges and maybe even how Evolution Wellness, or from your experience, how you address those challenges? Can you give us an example at all?
One of the main, the other challenges that we do face when we first launched the HR digitalization, or I should say the automations of HR processes, is the training part. Although it's a digitalization, but we still have to do a face-to-face training, because to be very frank, some might not even, although smartphone nowadays is the in thing, but some of them still are quite, I should say, not used to using a smartphone to access to all these HR platform itself. So it's really a handheld kind of training that we need to conduct with every individuals to let them understand. And the training process is really take up quite a bit of our time when we first launched our HR automation process.
Great. Thank you, Eric. And Joel, from your perspective, in terms of any of the challenges you've had to deal with from maybe moving from a face-to-face learning environment to more of an online learning environment, some of the challenges, and how did you manage those? Any thoughts?
Thank you for asking. It's really behavioral, or like in the mindset, especially training or learning and development. It's just introduce change management, and try to convince them to go into the growth mindset. Sometimes there's resistance because for the lack of knowledge, or they're afraid to operate like what Eric said, the device, or the tools that they're using. But once you address that and know that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to ask questions, and help them understand why we need to go through this change, and then also help them get engaged with the tools and the training, in time they'll accept it and they'll embrace it, and they'll realize that it's about time that they also get on board.
Completely agree, Joel. From an emotional behavioral perspective, this is often neglected. Often people look at the technology, get the project management team or the PMO set up, but they often neglect the buy-in and the emotional roller coaster ride. Employees need to do more with the technology, and businesses need to take more responsibility and accountability for driving that, rather than HR leading and delivering all those transactional activities. So times are changing, and it's important to get in early, from my perspective. In terms of misconceptions, common misconceptions about maybe digitization from, is it going to be less personalized, more transactional because you've got more engagement with technology, and less human touch? That's a common misconception for me. But any other misconceptions regarding HR digitization?
I think take away the ownership, take away the kind of the decision that I keep on saying. Feel like I lose some power, lose some control, and also cannot really respond to, because as a HR, always kind of one of the headache or the issue that I heard about is how can we respond to the internal client when they ask for that? The business leader is so powerful, they are so as a king. How can we respond to that? Oh, you need to do the self-service by yourself. I cannot help you at all. This kind of the conversation. But I think, to me, I think after 3-4 years right now, it's really a journey. So at the beginning, probably yes, even ourselves, the business leader, etc., are not that familiar with the change, not really adapting to that. But I do believe the time can help. And those of the training that Eric and Joe mentioned about definitely can help. And human being is really very natural and very normal. People may not be that easily getting to the point, but once they click it and find those of the benefit, the value, they're on board.
Great. Completely agree. Joel, over to you. In terms of any misconceptions from your point of view around any of those HR digitization thoughts?
Well, actually, we just had this experience. We call it partner experience survey, like an employee survey, and our partners or our employees are very appreciative of our technology and our new approaches to digitalization. I guess because the way that our leaders embrace it and tell the story that this is where we want to go, and it's totally okay. You don't have to catch up right away. But it's really the way our leaders role model that everyone's learning, and then the behavior is addressed. Ask for help if you don't understand, and it's totally okay. So I think it's and the thing is the one of the misconceptions is we will cut the connection. It's about connectivity with other people, face to face. But still, we will manage to address that.
Thanks, Joel. I think it's about that balance, right, between the machine and the human. The touch points need to be balanced. And it comes down to the culture of the organization. I'm sorry, I'm moving a bit. But in terms of the culture and the mindset and getting that discussions going and flowing amongst all the stakeholders is really, really important. And if organizations don't do that, their ability to transform and meet their KPIs and their milestones are going to be limited because people are going to push back. Research shows at Mercer that, even with the remote learning, remote working, 40% of senior leaders actually preferred to see their employees physically in the office to determine whether they're productive or not. And that's the wrong mindset, to be honest. They need to shift. And that's why leadership alignment workshops right at the beginning, setting the business parameters is kind of critical. And organizations or people listening, it's critical if you're embarking on that journey and that transformation. Those are critical aspects that need to be built in. Eric, any other misconceptions, points that you want to add?
I don't think so. I think both Winnie and Joe has touched it. Mainly it's the staff that is very worried the loss of the connectivity with HR or even their superiors or the line managers. But what we did in Evolution Wellness is that we still visit them during the launch of the things itself to check in with them whether do they face any issues, whether do they have any other HR issue or whatsoever. So that is really, as what Winnie mentioned, as time go by, they get used to it, and now everything go on very smoothly.
Great. Thanks, Eric, and great inputs from everyone. I'm aware of the time, and I do want us to have some Q&A with the audience, and I know there's some questions coming in, but I want to offer to the panelists an opportunity to share their words of wisdom, to give us a bit of an insight on what would be a key takeaway for them in terms of, what do they want the audience to get as a key message. And I'm going to start with Joel. What would be your key message, your key learning that you want to ensure everyone gets around digital transformation?
I guess it's aligning your purpose, that organization's purpose to the digitalization, and also it's the trust. I wanted to share that the trust. First of all, you have to establish trust your organization, trust your leaders, have this this growth mindset, and have an open dialogue. If you don't understand why are you heading that direction, ask. So I think communication is important, and also for us to get to the next level.
Fantastic. Our research is telling us that trust and transparency in organizations are on the decline, not improving, because business leaders are wanting to get clarity before they communicate, but it leaves their employees in limbo. So I totally agree with you, Joe, about that communication and engagement and doing that as early as possible and building that trust because it's about a partnership. Eric, any final words of wisdom from you?
For me, will be definitely whether we like it or not, digitalization or HR transformations isn't an optional to us anymore because we have to, as a HR team, we have to move away, really have to move away from personal management into a business partner roles. So with this transformation, with this digitalization, actually it empower us more times as what we mentioned earlier on, to able to create more data, more reports to support, to play as a real business partner role rather than a personnel management role.
Great, I agree. An enabler role. I mean, HR business partners are transforming their roles, are moving from more transactional to more strategic. And I think it's important that we upskill and select the right people going forward and being closer and connected with the business so they're adding that immediate value. I'm going to finish with Winnie before handing over to Wendy to open up to the audience.
Sure.
But any final words of wisdom from you?
I would say 2 points. Number one, I would say is really inclusive. Include everybody at the beginning to make sure that they really have a say, have a more kind of the dialogue, as Joe mentioned. Once they create the question, they have the question, we can respond to that. That is helping us to in terms of the communication. The second point, I think connecting everything, all the dots together. So I think, Daryl, you mentioned about it's not just about a system. It's not just about a piece of the system kind of implementation. It's more about the whole thing, the cultural, the mindset change, behavior change, and the way of working, even the role of everybody is not only HR, but business leader, etc. So altogether, we probably will be heading towards a better tomorrow.
Yep, fantastic. So just adding, I think we've covered culture, we've covered the systems and processes, technologies, we've covered, the leadership buy-in. Capability is the last one, right? The upskilling and reskilling. And this is what a lot of our clients at Mercer are struggling with. What are those emerging skills, those future fit skills for the operations of the business, and how to go about developing, online and offline. But I really thank you all for your sharing. And I'm going to pass over to Wendy.
Sure. We've received actually quite a lot of interesting questions, so get ready. The first one is, we've heard how great digital transformation is, but what is the downside of having to implement such, or is there a downside at all? So that's the first question.
I would say downside probably is if the firm is not involving, as I mentioned, not involving everyone, and the people kind of competing in terms of their different agenda, there will be a lot of downside because they are not really working towards the same goal, same objective. They are not building the trust between each other. They are just feeling like this is your agenda. You want to have that system, but I don't want to because it's not benefiting to us. So I think that is the downside. But if we are able to implement in the right way, I would say there are a lot of the good energy and the positivity there.
Right. Any other thoughts from other panelists on this one, or should we move on to another?
I think in terms of downgrading, I think it's important to get that balance, right? I mentioned that before about the digital and machines. Machines are not going to go away, right? I think I explained that earlier. So, but it's about finding that balance and the human touch points. Remember, technology is about augmenting human performance. And 95% of the organizations that we work are not trying to eliminate people. They're not trying to get rid of them. They're trying to use technology, leverage off technology to add value to their business and add value to augment the performance of human beings. And we need to collaborate. We need to find a way to make it work. And the sooner the better, because technology is here to stay.
Right. Moving on to the second question. We have, like most digital and technological advancements, is there an upkeep to upgrade?
There is. I mean, every time you go onto your laptop, it sometimes asks you to boot, right? It's going to take 5 minutes. So there's always going to be upgrading or updates is probably the better word. Upgrade takes a bit longer. It's a bit less frequent. But if you're using cloud-based systems, it's live. So there's no, time downgrade. But you need upgrades and you need updates all the time for efficiency and speed, because technology is smarter as well. But if you're looking at machine learning and deep learning, it kind of does it automatically itself, and it's learning through interacting with humans and the environment. And there's more and more machine and deep learning happening. So there's my thoughts. I don't know if others have.
Yeah, I agree on that. So for example, the different regulation kind of came in, the system probably will be upgraded with those of the formula. Peter mentioned about the system in terms of calculating the average wage, etc. So this is also something more helping us on the more efficiency side. And also I think the experience is also another part of having those of the upgrading, using the chatbot, using different kind of the RPA or the AI is kind of helping the transformation in terms of automate something, etc. So I think there are a lot of the upgrade requiring. So from my experience, those are the systems probably annually twice those of the upgrading, small or big kind of thing.
I see. Any other additions from the other panelists?
Well, from my experience, because we work with 14 countries in Asia Pacific, so different countries have different regulations and different, versions. So anything to do with either connectivity or either compatibility, so it will require an upgrade from different, countries.
Okay.
But just adding on that, because we're going through a lot of HR technology reviews for organizations where they've acquired different companies and they're looking at the technologies that they now are part of their ecosystem. And there is a move to more cloud-based systems. There is a move to more integrated platforms. So organizations and in different geographies and time zones can still talk to each other, and they can benefit and leverage off the maturity levels in other countries and what they're doing. And that allows them to be more efficient and effective and use the best practices that are occurring in their own organization.
Right. I also assume that security would be an issue as well, right? With the upgrades and upkeep and just being, or ensuring that the systems are all secure. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, culture cybersecurity has been talked about a lot. And it's a strange thing, right? But I guess as data leaves the office, there's different risks. And IT security teams and building a cyber culture is quite critical. And that's built in compliance training more and more to get the behaviors. Because most incidents that occur with cyber attacks are generally, 69% are based on human behavior errors. So that's why onboarding requires this and building that right culture, skills and development, but the right mindset is really important.
Great. We have time for one more question, and this is quite a lengthy one, so I'll try to break that up in a little into chunks. What is the degree or difference when having to implement a digital strategy from a mom and pop shop to an MNC? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, the same question goes for when measuring the success or failure of a digital strategy from both vantage points. So maybe I'll repeat the first part of the question again. What is the degree or difference when having to implement a digital strategy from a mom and pop shop to an MNC?
I'll take a stab first and then the others can jump in. So it comes down to cost, right? Depending on the technology that you're looking at, some are subscription-based. So it looks at cost to the volume of employees. So if you're a mum and pop shop of 10, you might be able to get a pretty good deal, but the implementation cost is quite significant. So that's one big difference, right? Second one is resource. You're not just getting resources externally to help support technology implementation. You've got to look at the process redesign, and you might not have those capabilities. So bringing in a freelance consultant or bringing in one of the big boys like Mercer is very, very possible. Thought I'd throw that in there. But all of these elements are important, and scalability. So if you're in multiple countries, multiple locations, you need to look at that, and that's going to be a key player. And you've got different data points that need to be migrated into a solution or a technology as well. And that takes time and effort, and it needs to be planned for. So those are some initial thoughts. I don't know if others have some comments.
Opening up to the rest of... Yes, Eric, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. For me, is the times as well, the timeline as well. The strategy for so-called for MNC, probably we have to be prepared to have a longer time frame to implement for this implementation, especially this as what Joe did for the 14 countries that they are launching. But for SME or even a smaller phase, probably time is might not be a constraint to them in terms of implementing a new digitalization for the HR platform as well.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
The one that I missed,
yes.
Wendy, was
go ahead.
the impact on the business. So when you decide on looking at technology to enable and augment performance in the business, whether it's a mom and pop shop of 5 or a big multinational with 150,000 employees, it's all about what impact and return on the investment it has for the employees as well as the business. There's no point doing it if you are not clear on your strategy. So having that strategy in place is quite critical. I mean, we hear a lot about the fintech, the startups, they're very digital. It's a good way to start rather than coming in halfway when your business is 6 or 7 years in. But it does come down to the investment. And these are considerations that are going to be really important for you to consider.
I think another point I would say is in terms of the strategy point, because we probably need to plan ahead. So when we kind of build a system, implement a system, it's not just for that point of time. It's more for the kind of the upcoming future 3 to 5 years. So whether that the really small size of a company, they are thinking about expansion. So if they are thinking on that way, the whole kind of the decision making in terms of the design, etc., probably will be different. So I think that is also important to bear in mind, not just thinking from that point of time in terms of the design.
Great. I think that was nicely wraps up our panel. I think that's we've already at time already. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, Daryl, for moderating.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yes, it's been a real pleasure having you join us for this panel.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So you've been absolutely fantastic for staying with us throughout this HR virtual exchange. Remember to check your email in the next couple of days to get a recap of some of the most noteworthy quotes and ideas from today's sessions and discussions, and an HR digitalization checklist e-guide. This content is exclusively for attendees of this virtual exchange, which means that you would be the one getting it. So we would like to take the opportunity to thank once again our sponsors for this HR virtual exchange. Mercer, our platinum sponsor, Tricor, our gold sponsor, Adobe, our silver sponsor, and last but not least, our live video partner, Studio One. All right, we thank you for your time, and we hope to see you in our future events.